half of the energy consumption, and also the fact that cities tend to be much better at engaging the members of the public than countries do. And as a citizen, to belong to a city is a much easier concept to speak into, because you're talking about your own home and your own streets rather than on a national level. And I just wonder if I could ask John and Andrew respectively to comment on this notion of personal responsibility within this wider debate.
Okay. I'm happy to start. In terms of cities, I guess why cities are able to act, and to give you some examples, what's heartening from America is the number of big cities that are setting climate targets with action plans far more ambitiously than the national government. Why would cities do that, or why is it that cities can do that? And I guess it's partly that they're close to the action on the ground. The effects of climate change are made apparent in cities, and city governments have to do something about it. Maybe if you're a few steps above that in the regional and state and national legislatures, there's a bit more remoteness. You don't feel the pressure quite so strongly. But cities will have to deal with a warming environment, or a more extreme and variable climate, or sea level rise, etc. So I guess when it's at your doorstep, and personal responsibility is less remote, it becomes more apparent. Cities also are used to dealing with the practical problems, the infrastructure problems, the problems on the street. Again, there's a less remoteness there that, again, perhaps they somehow have the ear of people a bit closer. So I don't know that it's necessarily personal responsibility. It's just being closer to implementation, closer to the problem that forces them to action.
John Burnett.
I was just going to say, I think I'll pass on that one. It's too difficult. Just an observation, coming back to Bill's point, Bill Barron's point. How many people here drive a car? How many people walk to work? I mean, a lot of this lifestyle thing is important. I always remember that basically poor people are pretty energy efficient. It's us the problem. Cities are the problem. So I don't know. I don't wear pajamas, and I don't use a quilt, and I don't turn my aircon down to 18 degrees, so maybe I'm making a small contribution. I think the problem for Hong Kong government, I think, is that it's not really a city in its mentality. It's a sort of a place, or an SAR, or whatever else they call it. So I can't really comment too much on that. I did read somewhere that you only need 20% of resources to be 80% as happy as you used to be. So if we can try and follow that thought individually, including turning the air conditioner up and walking to work, we might get somewhere then.
Thank you. I guess the other thing is something that is emerging from our preparation for the C40 event is that personality drives the deal in cities a lot. We hear about city mayors doing things, and that, particularly in New York, is a strong example of that. But perhaps we'll just move on. There's another question.
Hi all, Stanley Ng from Junior Chamber International Hong Kong, an international organization that have 60 years history in Hong Kong with 1,500 members currently. My question is, we've heard a lot of difficulties, heard of a lot of challenges already, and also there's a very common way to say that people fear to change. But from my touch of the young people now in Hong Kong, especially in Hong Kong now, a lot of young people there willing to do something for the earth, do something for the environment. So, and I also know that in November we will have a C40 conference in Hong Kong. If the conference will have some impacts to young people in Hong Kong, what will be the change? What will be the impact that you want the young people to have from the conference?
Well, I think that one term that I use sometimes is right sizing. I think that houses are built too large and cars too large for, to prove something to somebody. I don't know. I don't think that for at least among the more affluent people, having a right-sized house or automobile would be something that would adversely affect them. I think also on this thermostat question, which is very interesting because President Carter, who I worked with, went out preaching about thermostats, and he was mocked about this in the next presidential election, and it was politically a negative for him. So politicians haven't talked about that in the United States for a long time. But I think with young people, you can say, actually you would be healthier if you walked to work. You would actually be healthier if there wasn't such a discontinuity between the indoor temperature and the outdoor temperature. Let it go a little bit. And I think, so far on this trip, I've done 5 university campuses in China, and by the end of the day, I will have done 6 on my trip, and then a few more later in the week. I think they are asking the right questions, and I think they are willing to change. I don't think to me, there's a movie called WALL-E that some of you might have seen, and it shows humans have left the earth because it was too dirty, and they're all letting robots do everything for them. In one sense, you could argue that's kind of where the model is headed right now. I don't find that to be very attractive, regardless of its impact on climate change or anything else. The human body was meant to use its muscles and to adapt a little bit. So I think it is possible to have this discussion with young people about what a healthy life would look like, and realize that it's accumulation of benefits, not some austere thing that we have to suffer through.
If I could just make a comment, what we'd hope young people get out of our 5 days of events, which is not only the C40 Cities event, but there's another 2 days of conference activities and a dedicated day for young people, a youth summit. When I went to school, there wasn't any environmental education as such. There were aspects within our science class that you perhaps could say were environmental education, but it's a lot more formalised amongst young people now. And I know that it's actually taken me a long time to learn all the stuff about the environment that young people learn very quickly in a couple of years. It's taken me years. It takes them a lot less because it's how, I don't know why, it's packaged better, and there's dedicated teaching of it, etc. It's actually easier for young people to get to know this stuff than older people. That's why young people are the hope, because it's easier for them. For a lot of older people, it will be very, very difficult for them to change habits, to change behaviour. Maybe impossible. Hopefully not impossible, but maybe. What I would ask young people is, if they're convinced by the arguments, first of all, to make changes themselves in their own lives, to advocate change in the arenas where they have some influence, and in the household, kids coming back from school, talking about what they've learnt and kind of insisting that the household implement some environmental measures. That's influential in its own sphere. And the third thing is a little bit more long term, and that is to hold on to that passion and that learning for the time not too far away when they have the political influence. Because there's only so much we can do as individuals. We need to do things collectively, perhaps through governments and other channels. And for governments to have confidence to make the regulations, make the policies, then they need to feel that people are behind them and people are backing them. So if young people can be, as they become politically influential, if they can be showing support, giving governments confidence, I think that will go a long way.
Jeannie.
Just a quick comment. One line that I've used often when I do some lectures is, when I speak to them, I tell them, the future that's being screwed up is yours. And actually, we're doing it right now. Now, if you're not going to care about it, okay, don't take action. But this is your chance to take action. This is your chance to care, because when you guys become the CEOs, you're going to be left with a lot more challenges than we're facing today. So in order for that, to prevent that from happening, wouldn't you want to do something about it? And I think suddenly a lot of them kind of think, oh, yeah, and I think that's probably one fair thing to say. It's because it is their future, and they should care about it, because what they inherit will be what we leave them, which could be a whole load of problems with little resources. Secondly, therefore, to challenge them, how can change start today in terms of a new business model? So going back to what Jake was saying about, more robots. I watched WALL-E and I loved it. And it was all these robots with these really fat human beings who couldn't even move. They couldn't even get out of a seat. And you look at the business model, we have gone to that point where actually, shouldn't it be the other way around? Maybe we should be making less products, higher quality, higher price, that last longer, but then you have more of a maintenance servicing economy, which right now, or service which you don't have anymore. It's actually disappeared. People would rather throw away your product than get it fixed, because it costs more to get it fixed, because you don't have the talent anymore. So it's challenging the younger generation to start thinking of the challenges and how can we change it so that they get a better future.
To ask a question, how many mobile phones have you had in the last 12 months? See? One of my girls in the office has had 3. I think one lesson you can teach people is about embodied energy. What does it cost to make something, not what it costs to buy it? There's an advert on from our government, actually, if you've seen it. It's about construction waste indirectly. It's about the fact that the parent, or the mother anyway, wants to refit the kitchen. But the son says, it's not necessary, this kitchen's fine. Do you know that in Hong Kong we have a problem with landfill waste? And most of it is blamed on construction. Actually, it's not the big building construction that contributes to a lot of this landfill waste. It is the refurbishment of interiors of apartments. Now, I've lived in Hong Kong for 30 years, and I don't think there's been more than a few months where somebody's not knocking about the building, okay? They're not hammering around the building. So the tendency is for people to move into buildings and refit them. If you go around this building, how much marble do you see? Okay, so we really do have a huge issue with lifestyle. The mentality of the developers, the mentality of people who go into building interiors, the mentality of people that go into even the residential apartments is that we want something new. We want something to be put in that makes us feel good. And I also know a lot of people who buy things who never open the box. It's a kind of, what is it, in a society like this one, consumerism makes you feel good, right? You go out and buy something and you make you feel good. So I think if you're talking about young children, young people anyway, is that let's get away from this consumerism, let's get away from having to have everything new, and perhaps avoid the status.
My name is John Herbert. I'm from the